now we turn to the panel part of the discussion, and we're hoping to create a degree of debate between people. I think we'll stick with the original plan. I have a general question to everybody, and then we'll go into some specific questions for individuals. Assuming time allows, and we hope it will, then we'll throw it open to questions from the floor. So do feel free to start thinking now about questions you may want to ask. So this first question is the same question to everybody, and ask people to keep their comments reasonably short. But it's a general question about what are your expectations regarding the action plan? And crucially, how is it possible to promote stronger collaboration between all the various actors I was talking about earlier? From your perspective, how can we promote stronger collaboration? Can I start at this end?
Yeah, I think one of the key issues for the future is the design of effective governance in the future, not at the European level, but at the national level, and the way in which at the national level different layers of policy making and actors can be coordinated, so that the action plan helps to identify ways in which several sources of funding can be mobilized, but also several levels of policy making can be coordinated. I'm talking in particular the relation between the national level and the regional level, on which I will tell something in the second round of our discussion.
I would like to comment on an action plan where I believe the most important word is action. An action plan for me is something which describes who is going to do what by when. And it's kind of difficult to comment on an action plan which is not yet there. But I'm sure this is going to happen. What I would like to add to the question you just have asked is not only Europe and member states, but I think also specifically in the context of the set plan that the regions have a crucial important role to play. For reasons that energy and other things are becoming, to what I can see from the program, more and more a regional problem with a regional solution. It may depend specifically for bigger countries, where the north is completely different from the south and the east is completely different from the west. So I think we need to look on how we can integrate the cooperation between Europe, national and regional regions. Sorry. What we do need to define in a common action plan is what are we going to do? What is the common vision? And I believe still that even here in the set plan, that it's too much in silos. We don't see this question on energy, the future of energy, the future of the applications as a common European problem, which need to be solved commonly. Each of the programs or the initiatives from the set plan is very much working in silos, and even on a national level, everybody is trying to solve his energy question by itself, although I believe that the question is pan-European wide, and I don't clearly see yet the commonality. What are we going to do together? We do have, again, quite a lot of competence in Europe, but we do need to put it all together. So first of all, we need to make sure that it's a common vision. Secondly, the research and innovation which we currently doing based on the 7th framework, based on the Horizon 2020, is selected based on excellence, which I think is very good. However, what I would like to see more is some criteria of performance, of outputs related to solving the problem to addressing the question on the energy, and very much related to the industry. I think industries who are coming up with a clear solution on how we can address the energy landscape in Europe should be one way or another rewarded based on whatever kind of mechanism we're putting in place, which is my second point. And thirdly, and this is something we quite often discuss, and which I think also should be addressed in the action plan, is the question on a sustainable business plan. Everybody, especially the industry, and I'm working with at least half of my, let's say, the participants in my project are industry, they want to see a viable business plan. But as long as we keep on calculating with a pretty low CO2 emission cost or tax or whatever you want to call it, there is no business plan which is really going to work. Always the cheapest and the easiest solution will be to keep on burning fossil fuels. Everything else, which is more complicated, will be more expensive, more difficult to implement. Business as usual, I believe, is going to be the easiest way, and therefore I think if we want to solve the energy problem for Europe, we should be reasonably flexible when we talk about how do we aid the state of Europe. And last point, of course, which needs to be into an action plan is what is the timing? By when do we need to solve what? And it's been mentioned before this morning, I often refer to the example of Denmark. They said by 2050 we would like to be fossil fuel import independent. I think it's very clear what they want to achieve by 2050. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm from ESNI, so the European Sustainable Nuclear Industrial Initiative. So I would like to comment on the question that was raised, and I would not even agree more with my colleague here, so that the action plan is about action, and clear action needs to be defined. So I would like to illustrate that a little bit with what we did in the nuclear area. So also there we have, let's say, shorter term and long term perspectives. If you look to the short term, there it is clear that we have to maintain the safe and competitive nuclear that we have today, that provides a large contribution to the security of supply and the low carbon emission energy source. So how did we attack that problem? So we put together, in fact, industry and research organizations together. So they have been working together in what we call now the Nugenia platform. They work very close together, so there is financing from the industry and the programs are defined together. So there is a clear collaboration, and this is on a European level. So this is not on a national level, it's on a European level. So this mechanism works perfectly for what I would call the rather short term. If you look to the longer term, where we are targeting, let's say, the 2050 objective of the set plan, so going to a more sustainable implementation of nuclear energy, there, in fact, we have responded to that by the European Sustainable Nuclear Industrial Initiative itself. So what are we targeting there? We are targeting there demonstrators. To have a new demonstrator, it takes 10, 15 years. In nuclear, you have to have the necessary time to develop that. And of course, industry alone cannot do that. It will participate, but public financing is necessary. And this has to go along with national programs. We have seen that there are several national programs supporting some demonstrators in nuclear business. And we have tried to streamline that and put some priorities, because money is scarce. Everyone knows that, so you have to put some priorities. We have done this in 2012, 2013, and that's why we have put forward two main projects, EERA and Astrid. So they are, in fact, putting forward, because on one hand you have large national programs that are supporting it, and on the other hand also technological maturity. So what we should be able to do is to try to align other national programs along with those, let's say, driving motors that we have today. But of course, this will not be able to do this without some glue money from, for instance, action plans or from the European Commission. So what I think is essential is that we have some priorities that are being set, that we also have mechanisms to implement the right collaboration between the different stakeholders, either industry or research or even the national programs, so the member states. So those mechanisms should also be available to all possible energy sources. So none of them should be excluded for that, which is not always the case. I'm talking about nuclear. So this is essential. And if we have that, together with some, let's say, glue money that you will also have to have within the action plan to convince some of the national programs to go in a certain direction, I think that we can have an effective implementation plan. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I have the pleasure to answer to this generic question on the action plan from an European Investment Bank perspective. You may be aware that we are in a way both a bank and an EU institution, and it's our duty, our objective to financially support projects that help the European Union to meet its objectives. We have spent quite some effort during the past years to implement facilities and support schemes that address the specific needs of RDI financing. This was done in cooperation with the European Commission. And we have now put in place a package that I'll explain later a bit more in detail, that I think is ready for application, and it's not only providing loans and guarantees at over long terms and at attractive rates to projects and companies and organizations, including research organizations. It's also providing substantial technical and financial advice, and sometimes makes financing possible in cases where a commercial bank would not touch the activity. But at the same time, the European Investment Bank does not provide grants. Our money must be paid back at some stage, and our guarantees should not be consumed immediately. So that is why we have to analyze in case of each individual operation whether and to what extent we can financially support it. And my expectation from the action plan really is that, given that we have these powerful tools at hand, I hope that the action plan mobilizes a number of high quality projects that we can financially support through our loans and guarantees. This is my sincere hope, and everyone in the auditorium who's having an RDI activity of a certain minimum size is invited to approach the EIB and ask to what extent we can support you. At the same time, I think the action plan cannot finalize the question marks that remain on financing, because, as I explained, it comes back to the individual operation where we have to decide on a financing on a case-by-case basis. And the question also implied reference: how can member states, EU level, and the various stakeholders cooperate? I think the NER 300 initiative was and is a very good example of close cooperation with a very powerful result. Of course, I mentioned the cooperation between the European Investment Bank and the European Commission to produce new facilities to enable us to lend to riskier projects and RDI activities. And of course, we always collaborate extremely closely with our clients who are seeking EIB support. Yes, this is my response to your question.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Diego Pavia speaking on behalf of KIC Innoenergy. KIC stands for Knowledge Innovation Community. So I will divide the question in two parts. First, the expectation that we have as far as Innoenergy is concerned regarding the action plan. So we'll build upon what the second speaker said about what has been done, who does it, when. We will welcome that in all the actions there is the wording: what is the impact, the measurable impact, what is the return on investment, and what is the TCO for the final user, the total cost of ownership. Because then there will be a business case, and the sooner we start talking about this language, the better. The second expectations we have from the action plan is about not only talk about TRL, technology readiness level, but also we heard this morning, market readiness level, customer readiness level, societal readiness level. Do we have the practitioners for the new energy system in Europe? So we have to get the universities to change the syllabus. So we have this human capital. So it's much wider than the former TRL. And the third expectations will be to drop the T from the set plan. Because the T brings us back to the past. Is it about technology? No. It's about this multidimensional approach. And we have to welcome the sociologues, the anthropologues, I don't know who, but they need to feel welcome into the new way forward. Those are our expectations. And then how to increase collaboration? A couple of points. First, I'm gonna be a bit disruptive here. Does the audience know how many interventions, that's the wording in the Commission, interventions we are suffering as end customer? So how many green tariffs, feed-in tariffs, you name it? Guess a number. As Europeans, how many are we suffering day in, day out of those measures that change the real, purely market-based price of the energy? 700. 700. Let's say that the study done by DG Energy would be wrong, 10% wrong, 600. So each one of us in our countries, we are suffering 30 different changes in the real price of the energy we're consuming. And we want to empower the consumer. I mean, he needs to do an MBA to understand what he's doing. So the first thing that I will request between EU member states and everybody is to clean the field, to streamline completely the regulatory impact that we have. And the second, for collaboration, when you want to collaborate with others, you need to understand the motivations of the others to be able to join forces to the common goal. The EU, what are we looking for in the EU? Well, that the political goals, affordability, security, greenhouse emissions, those are the motivations of those gentlemen and ladies. Member states, tax collection. More tax collection, that's jobs and growth. What does research want? Well, they're measured themselves as individuals by publications. Let's push them a bit to the patent, to a bit more valorization of the science. And what industry do we want? Is impacting our P&Ls. So let's understand everybody. So when we work together really. Thank you.